Turana, and I am back on our social show. And I know you guys probably have been missing my voice, but it's back and it's ready. It's a beautiful, beautiful Tuesday morning, all the way in Melbourne, Johannesburg. I don't know where you are, but the weather still seems a little bit off, and I don't know if it's gonna change, if it's gonna get better. All I need is the sun. But anyway, as per usual, we're going to start off the day with the news. And let's go for it. Human Settlement Minister Lindiwe Sisulu has recommitted 188 million to the city of Johannesburg for the development of housing in the inner city. The amount is in addition to the 136.5 million the city has already committed to housing developments in the inner city for 2017 and 2018 financial year. City of Johannesburg Mayor Herman Mashaba said the economic revival of the inner city is a priority and is key to creating an inclusive and prosperous city for all residents. The 7-day 2017 Miss Universe program kicks off on Saturday, the 26th of September, with more than 80 countries represented at this year's Global Women Empowerment event. The winner will be crowned at Durban's Albert Luthuli International Convention Center on the 2nd of September. The program includes the #One Voice March against gender-based violence, child abuse and human trafficking, and visiting in the Greater Durban area to inspire children and stress the importance of education and self-development. Miss Universe is a women empowerment initiative that acknowledges married women between the ages of 25 and 45 who are doing phenomenal work to uplift and enhance their local communities through CSI initiatives, business development and global trade units. Lastly, in our news, under a 20-year master plan to replace old or aging asbestos pipes in HDPE pipes, the Drakenstein local municipality in Paarl, Western Cape, has achieved significant successes in reducing water loss throughout the area. The water losses at 34% by 1999, and increasing, the municipality was forced to investigate the reasons for the high water losses and find ways to mitigate these on a broader front. It began prioritizing projects that included pipe replacements, the replacement of bulk and domestic water meters, pressure management, leak detection, and repair, public awareness, and upgrading information and management tools. The lower losses enabled the municipality to delay the construction of reservoirs and large pipelines for several years. There was also a decrease in the occurrence of burst pipes. However, the reduction in residual pressures in various pressure zones had the biggest water saving effect. And that concludes our news for the day.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Yeah. Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.bstownmedia.co.za.
Now, a very big part of social responsibility and social investment, as well as CSV, which is Creators Shared Value, is monitoring and valuation. Because monitoring and valuation doesn't only just help corporations learn the past experiences, it also helps them really get away from getting scammed, or communities getting scammed, or looking at how or repeating just past mistakes. I think that's the biggest problem that a lot of CSI initiatives have found, is that you find that there's a solution that has been sort of tail-marked or marked by a corporation. However, it just doesn't work, but it's so much more convenient and so easy for the corporation. So it's very important that we continue to monitor and evaluate CSI, CSR activities, to undertake better systematic planning, to optimize resource allocation, to measure the results, and to hold people accountable. People must always be held accountable for whatever their CSI departments are doing, because it directly affects not only those that are in the community, but those that are in the surrounding communities and the families that are also helping other families survive. And that's the thing. And it's very important that we make sure that we constantly monitor and evaluate our activities, especially when we are working with communities. Now, the basic understanding of CSI initiative is that it really strike to balance between economic benefits to organizations and social benefits to various stakeholders. And I guess that's the premise of what CSV is that we're balancing profit with purpose. But at the same time, there are many organizations that can monitor the activities and really make sure that these activities have a large impact and are really going to help. Not only are they, helping with the effectiveness of a CSI or CSR program, which can also be monitored through a two-tier monitoring mechanism involving external as well as internal agencies for thorough evaluation. So sometimes you find that you'll find someone evaluating the strategy from the company perspective, from the organization perspective, someone appointed by the organization like the CSI head or even the auditor or the accounting head, just monitoring the funds and where they're going. Then you can also get an external moderator who's going to come out and say, you know what, I'm looking at your track record, I'm looking at your years, I'm looking at how much money you've been given and how much money you've promised to give, and I'm looking at whether or not there's been any foul play, and also looking at the communities, going to the communities, going back to them, finding out whether or not they feel as though they've been served by this corporation, especially when you think of the mining community. A lot of the mining towns are really affected by the what the mines, sort of from a pollution perspective to a job perspective. So what the mines contribute either economically or from an environmental perspective, or even giving free education to their workers, or helping kids get I know Anglo American has an amazing initiative where they get scholarships for kids in matric. They also take them to maths and science camps, so that they can just be well informed, but also that they can give back to the community, because they understand that the mining may have a toll on the people that work or stay or live around that area. There can also be a regular monitoring unit or units, and I know there's quite a few in South Africa that sort of monitor the money, the transactions, the impact of corporate centers with the monthly or quarterly reporting about CSI activity. So every single time you sort of the same way you have to give the SARS, their money, in terms of tax and all of that kind of stuff. It's the same thing when it comes to CSI, and I think it's time that more companies start looking at CSI as something very serious, something that really does have the power to not only change communities, but also people can really embezzle and take money and scam from within the organization. So if it's not monitored correctly, we have an issue. A full internal audit must be carried out to ensure, effective implementation. Again, CSI, because it's such a far off concept to a lot of companies, to them it's like CSI is like the sort of the back burner. But it's very important that that the CSI department also has a full internal audit, the same way the company does, the same way all the different spaces, the different departments do, because it also generates or rather has some sort of budget, and that budget must be allocated effectively. Otherwise, they just have it for fronting, and it really doesn't have any real power. So it's very important that the CSI space is constantly monitored and evaluated to make sure that its impact is really being felt by the community. We have to make sure there's transparent assessment evaluation, and it can be taken up through reputable agencies who are in the business of making sure that CSI initiatives are legit. And it's really not that difficult for a company to make sure that this space is thriving, but more than that it is working in such a way that it is sustainable. Sustainability is the most important thing, because if, for instance, they give a budget to CSI once every year, and every year it starts getting less and less and less, or less and less communities are being served, or less and less kids are getting scholarships, and no one's evaluating that, you could end up with the department that just doesn't work, or doesn't work very well for this community. So for proper and periodic monitoring of CSI and CSR activities, companies can also have a CSI committee. that is either external or internal. And what's great about a committee is that it doesn't necessarily carry out what you're doing in your CSI space, but what it does is that it just looks at the stats, it looks at what's going on, and it makes sure that we are on the right track and you are heading towards whatever your plan is, whether you are as a company going straight with the NDP or sustainable 2020 rules or whatever it is that your main objective is in 10 years, 5 years, is that you get closer to your goal. So there's a lot of really amazing ways in which companies can, without it being too expensive, without it being too much of an issue, can effectively monitor and evaluate their CSR, objectives. I'm going to come back just right after this break, and I'm going to come to you a little bit more and just talk to you about why it's so important that corporate responsibility, reputation, and why investors really want to see the stats of the CSI, evaluation, so that they can give you more money and they can also get involved in the space. But I'll do that when I come back.
brandlive.co.za. Making a bold statement yet blending into the surrounding suburbs of Melville, 27 Boxes is a realization of edgy design and practical implementation. A radical departure from the shopping malls of our generation, yet not a return to the high streets of our youth. 27 Boxes showcases the best of a shopping centre set in a garden, surrounded by the bohemian suburb that is Melville. 27 Boxes, shop, play, eat.
You're back on the social show with myself, Viwe. And if you want to know a little bit more about what we do, please don't forget to go to www.social-tv.co.za. You can get the latest in CSI news from Africa, South Africa, and the rest of the world. We make sure that we're on top of our game. There's video content. There's such amazing stuff that's happening. But what I'm talking about today is monitoring and evaluation, and how important it is in securing a sustainable system for CSI initiatives, but also how important it is that organizations don't just throw money at a situation, but they actually know what objectives and what goals they're working towards. But more than that, also what it does, which is a very big part of social responsibility, is that it makes sure that we understand the impact. We understand the consumer, first of all, and what kind of role they have in really giving you some sort of profit to help the CSI space, but also it helps you understand the community that you're in. What are the problems? How do you face them? And how do you alleviate those problems? Because remember, right, if you as a company are operating in a space, in a community that has a problem, any problem, it could be a drug problem, it could be a gangster problem, and every year you work towards eliminating that problem, it also works in your favor, because when there's less crime, when there's less poverty, when there's less suffering, you're able to work in a space where your community, the community around you, is very, has a positive idea and energy around your company. They support you. They're there. They volunteer their time. They can help, and also it may cut down on your budget, because the more you help, the less people need. The less you have to give, because you're already solving the problem. So remember, solving the problem is very important, but solving it effectively and sustainably is going to help your business. It's going to help your business. So a recent survey a while ago of about 20,000 people in 20 countries offered some very fascinating insights into the way customers, consumers, and societies at large perceive social and environmental responsibilities of businesses. It was called the Corporate Social Responsibility Monitor, and it really looked at the global public opinion on the changing role of companies as it identified, those kind of aspects of corporate practice that matter the most to the general public. And it also revealed some intriguing differences in the priorities between different regions of the world. Now, the survey was actually undertaken by Environics International and involved interviews with around 1,000 people in each of the 20 countries. And these countries included the USA, Canada, Mexico, Britain, France, Germany, Japan, India, Russia, and Nigeria. And I'm just going to give you a few of the key findings. And hopefully, once I just talk about those findings of this amazing survey, you can then look at where I'm going with it as to monitoring and evaluating, and how it's important to have those stats, to have that feedback from the community, from the organizations that monitor, from the agencies that understand CSI, because nothing really matters until it's evaluated. If it's not evaluated, then we cannot see whether or not it worked, whether it didn't work, or whether or not you did it or you didn't do it. So it's very important that there's a track record of the kind of work that you are doing in the CSI space. Otherwise, nobody will know and nobody will commend you and nobody will really tell you where you're going wrong and where you're going right. So the key findings that were found in this survey is that significant numbers of investors take a company's social performance into consideration when making investment decisions. Now, it's a very important point, right? That if you have an evaluated, accredited CSI industry or sector in your company, whoever you want as a client, big or small, whoever you think of getting into your books, into your clientele, will inevitably look at your corporate social responsibility tactics. What is it that you're doing for your community? What kind of human aspect does your business have? Who are you targeting? Is it aligned to your brand? Is it not? If not, why? So it's a very important part of you getting more clients. And I think this is very important and something that people need to know, especially business owners, is that not only are you doing good, but you're also attracting more clientele to your business, because when you do good, you're able to say to the person investing in you, to the person giving you more business, that, you know what, as much as we are doing business, there's so much more that our business is going to do and contribute to the community at large. I know that in the USA, about 61% of people own shares, and more than a quarter said they bought or sold shares on the basis of a company's social performance. This is a similar idea that emerged in Canada, Japan, Britain, and Italy. It's very important that if you want to make sure that you get more investors, that you actually have accredited, understood, transparent social performance. So this is a very important part of being, monitored and evaluated. Also, it said that in wealthier countries, this is the second point from the survey, in wealthy countries, social responsibility makes a greater contribution to a corporate reputation than brand image. Now, a company's commitment to a sound labor practices, environmental stewardship, good community relations plays an influential role in how it is perceived by the public, especially in developed countries. The effect can also be seen to a lesser degree in developing countries. You see, this is also one of the issues that I think I have a lot of the time, especially with wealthy countries and wealthy brands, is that they kind of use, and I speak about it all the time on the social show, when you use good company practices or good social, practices as a PR gimmick. And, that's what monitoring and evaluation is going to do. Is going to try and strip away from a lot of companies, is that, yes, as much as you're doing good will give you a better brand image, that should not be your point or your purpose. Your purpose for your PR, for your branding, should not just to be looking good, but to actually to be doing good. And it's sort of a catch-22 in my head when I think about it, because I think of it as, okay, so a company understands that their brand is going to be stronger if they do good. So they'll carry on doing good, which is amazing and which is what we need more of. But at the same time, they also have some sort of comeback from that to say your brand image is going to be seen positively, is going to be seen a little bit differently if you are doing good. So I have an issue around it being a PR strategy and it actually being an actual contribution to the economy and to the communities at large. Especially if it's just for gimmick. However, I would rather have companies, work their brand image around doing good any case. So you tell me, actually, you can get us on our Instagram pages, you can get us on our Facebook page. What are the cons and the pros and cons of companies using, their good social responsibility tactics as a PR initiative? Because I can see the good and I can see the bad. I really can. But what's great is that when you do have a strong monitoring and evaluating system, is that regardless of what it is you're doing it for as a company, if it's not being impactful, if it's not changing lives, it will be graded low. It will be showcased in these amazing models. These amazing evaluation agencies will let you know that you're doing very little. Actually, all you're doing is glitz and glamour, throwing a few celebrities together and saying you're doing good. And that's also very bad for a brand image, is that there's nothing worse than telling people that you're doing good and then being shown later on that you're actually not doing good. So you also don't want to be caught in that sort of debacle as a business. You don't want to be seen as a liar, And also, just lastly, just to close up the show, companies that ignore social responsibility place in the market share are at risks. Consumers, especially those in the North America, this is a survey obviously, are likely to vote with their wallets against companies whose social and environmental performance is perceived to be poor. 42% of consumers reported having punished socially irresponsible companies by not buying their products. And in Asia, by contrast, there is less pressure to follow ethical standards. There are only 8% of consumers said they boycotted companies with low standards of corporate social behavior. Obviously, every country is different. Every country has its own pinnacle issues. Also, if you think of countries like Asia, where you find that a lot of people do kind of have housing, a lot of people do kind of have, some sort of base. They're not that poor. I know there are some people that are poor. Some Asian countries do have a really amazing middle class, stronger middle class than a poorer class. So you find that there's a less effect as to whether or not a business is corporate has a social responsibility. But in wealthier countries and also in developing countries, I do think there's a very big emphasis on whether or not a company is doing their what they need to do, and they may lose customers because of their poor standards. I know BP went through it. A lot of different corporates have been going through it. Starbucks once went through it. A lot of consumers are very aware of whether or not you are contributing. But the most important thing out of all of it, whether or not your consumers or your customers or investors believe you or not, whether or not believe in your corporate social responsibility tactics, what the most important thing is for you as a business is to make sure that you are monitored and evaluated regularly, monthly, quarterly, so that whatever leg you stand on, it's a leg of good standing. And you can also just be able to say, as much as we can say we're doing this in the media, we're actually also being evaluated and monitored to make sure that our impact is real and that our impact is sustainable and that we are actually changing the lives of people, not just acting like we are, but actively so as a business. And it is also going to then make sure that your business thrives and make sure that you are top of the ranks when people want to choose a business they want to work with. Wouldn't you want to work with a business that is transparent about their social responsibility, about their social investments and their shared value, who are saying, the money that you guys are giving us, actually, some of it is going to the communities, and we are trying to, align ourselves with the NDP goals and sustainable goals and whatever goals that they have for that specific community. It's very important. And that concludes my show for the day. I hope you learned something. If you didn't, feel free to go on our website to find out a little bit more about what we do. But more than that, send me questions, send me queries, challenge me if you think I'm wrong, if you think it's a better way to really, understand CSI. Let me know on our social mediums, social1_TV on Instagram, as well as on Twitter. And that's it from me in the Social Show. We'll be back again same time tomorrow morning.
brandlive.co.za. Guess who got brands talking? brandlive.co.za.